Hey guys, Lord here, back again with another edition of Flashback Fridays, and what I have for you today is the Mattel DC Universe Classics Wave 10 Collect and Connect Imperiex. That's right, we're finally going to be wrapping up our looks at Wave 10 of the DC Universe Classics line, brought to us by the fine folks over at Mattel, with a look at the big man himself, the Collect and Connect Imperiex. But before we get into the meat and taters of this review, since this guy does not have any packaging to speak of, since he is a Collect and Connect, not to be confused with Build-A-Figure, because those aren't the same concept in any way, shape, or form, right? And since he does not include any accessories, let us go over what it took to put together the awesome figure you see before you. So, Wave 10 of the DC Universe Classics line was, I believe, a Walmart exclusive, if I'm not mistaken. That and Wave 5 were both Walmart exclusives. Not sure how difficult to track down they were. I can just imagine it must have been slightly better than exclusives are to find nowadays. But at any rate, in order to build this guy, you needed to pick up the Joker, Man-Bat, Beast Boy, Power Girl, Robot Man, and Forager. There was a Michael Keaton-esque Batman in this wave. He had the all-black suit and the bat symbol with the yellow oval on it, if I remember correctly, but he just came with a figure stand, so I don't have that figure at this current time, but maybe at some point I will pick it up and we'll sort of fill in the blanks of my DC Classics reviews on this channel with some of those figures that did not come with Collect and Connect parts, because really they're not the most essential for that reason, but they are still figures in the line. Some of those characters that came with the stands anyways were actually quite sought after a while. Hawk Girl from the Giganta Wave is one that comes to mind. But moving on from that, that's what you needed to put this guy together, and the end result is oh so glorious. So taking a closer look at Imperiex here. And if you guys know this channel well enough, you know that the Four Horsemen do a kick-ass job when it comes to skull or skeleton character head sculpts, and this just looks awesome. He's got the big kind of almost swap thing looking with the way his helmet's shaped and everything. He's got these two little nubbins on the top, not sure if those are goggles or what, but they're there. And then he's got this little plume or ponytail on the back, but just look at that head sculpt and face sculpt, I should say. That looks death metal, doesn't it? Really, really cool. And while I'm not too familiar with this character, I want to say he's like a Superman, Green Lantern type villain. Obviously Justice League villain. His color palette's freaking awesome. Black and red with gold accents. That's definitely up my alley, for sure. But his size. He is a sizable fellow. This is like an 8 to 9 inch figure. He's pretty big. So, you know, on top of it, that's what she said, that's also good for the figure, because you're definitely getting bang for your buck here, whereas Hasbro for a while was giving you a Build-A-Figure shorter than the average size figure, so, you know, keep that in mind. Mattel never did that. I mean, they did it once, but you needed 2 figures to put it together. Was it Dr. Psycho, I want to say? And that was later on in the Multiverse line, so it technically wasn't even Classics. But as far as posability on this guy goes, his head will rotate, look up and down a little bit, not too much tilt side to side. His shoulders go out to the side, back down, forward and back. He's got a bicep swivel, single joint at the elbow, swivel at the wrist, which is easily, or nicely hidden, I should say, by the gauntlet cuts and all that there. So that's really, really nice. I will say this arm on mine, it's like not seated all the way, so I'm probably going to replace it. The bicep cut here is very, very gappy, and I don't think I have that with any of my other Collect and Connects. So If I ever get around to going back to toy shows and whatnot again, I'm definitely going to be looking for this arm. Or I'll just replace it on eBay or something. It's not that big a deal. What is it, 20 bucks now? It's whatever. It's the part that came with Man-Bat, of course. Couldn't have been one of the ones that came with, I don't know, the cheap figure of the wave. But, at any rate, he does have an ab crunch, which clicks that far forward. It doesn't really click, but it moves. Moves a little bit. You don't get a ton out of that. He is a big dude, though. And it is kind of hindered by the sculpt. He also has a waist swivel, which it should be worth noting. It's not going to feel like a pig's in all the way, because there is a, there's a bit of a indentation to kind of allow you to rotate the waist, period. So, it doesn't really push in any further than this, but you could tell he looks proportionate. His fists go slightly past his crotch, so he is all the way together. It's just that it feels like it isn't. I think that's probably to allow for waist movement, but I could be wrong. His hips kick forward and back pretty well, actually. He can almost do a 90-degree angle kick there. Not too bad for a big guy. And then they can also go out to the side a little bit. This is where it gets really hindered by the skirt piece. It is somewhat flexible, but it wraps all the way around, so it's going to omit a lot of potential posability there. He does have a thigh cut, which is kind of hidden by the armor paneling, but it does look like he got all cut up Cannibal Corpse style there, so that's not ideal. And then he also has a single hinge in the knee, as well as a hinge in the foot with a tiny bit of a rocker, and peg holes at the bottom of the feet if you do need a stand for this guy. Let me actually check. I don't know if this works or not. I imagine it would. We got our handy dandy McFarlane stand here. Just find that peg hole. There it is. The McFarlane stand kind of works. It's loose. It doesn't really do much for him, but you know, you could always use the McFarlane stands with the little clips on them, maybe, to help him stand if you really need to. But at any rate, that is Imperiex in a nutshell. Super cool looking figure. Really awesome character design. And just a nice presence. He's very large and in charge. He's going to have a presence on your classic shelf. Definitely one to put in the back so he doesn't undermine anyone that should be in the front. I'm trying to get him centered here. That's probably good enough. But at any rate, we move right along and take a look at some size comparisons. And just to give you an example, we are going to compare him to some other Build-A-Figures / collectabuilds that I've put together recently, just to give you an idea of how big this guy actually is, because I think you might be surprised. So that being said, let's move on right along to said size comparisons. First up, here is Imperiex next to a couple of Build-A-Figures I've completed recently. The McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Collectabuild Frost King, and the Hasbro Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure Armadillo. And while Imperiex takes it on height, Armadillo takes it on width, and Frost King takes it on sculpted detail, though I will say Imperiex is a close second. Next up, and for those of you keeping track, here is the Collect and Connect Imperiex next to the rest of a Wave 10 from the DC Universe Classics line. Now, if I were to give you guys a quick overview of this entire wave and rank my favorite to least favorite, I'd have to go with something like Man-Bat, the Joker, Imperiex, Beast Boy, Robot Man, Forager, and Power Girl. Now, don't get it twisted. Just because a character ranked lower than another doesn't mean I didn't enjoy them. It's just I don't know everything about every single character in this wave, thus they rank a little lower. That said, this is still a very solid wave. And last but certainly not least, we have our two regulars, the Mythic Legion's Brother Mandibulus, 11th Spawn, who's not towering over everyone today because Imperiex is a Collect and Connect figure. after all. Not to be confused with a Build-A-Figure, that is. So, with that being said, I'm going to wrap things up. Some final thoughts. Overall, and while this may not be the most dynamic figure in the world as far as articulation and posability are concerned, I still believe that this guy evokes a very, very awesome and intimidating presence on any shelf. He is large and in charge and just looks like a bad mother trucker that you don't want to mess with. I don't know how powerful or overpowered, whatever you want to call it, this character is in the comics, but I sure as hell would not want to tangle with this guy. I doubt I'd last more than 10 seconds, because this is definitely a dude you don't want to cross as far as I'm concerned. He's just, again, a bad mother trucker, and one I think you should definitely try and track down if you're at all interested in building up your DC Classics collection, or you just like really cool toys and really awesome action figures. I think he fits that bill too. I mean, just look at this guy. The colors, the size, the design, they just pop, man. And is this a Jack Kirby character? Let me know in the comments below, because, you know, I give bonus points to Jack Kirby characters, because without Jack Kirby, a lot of the stuff I like wouldn't exist. So, you know, always giving credit where it's due here on Overlord Productions. But, with that being said, I don't believe this is one of the more expensive Collect and Connect figures. I think he's relatively affordable. 50, 60 bucks usually is what he runs, maybe less depending on who you know, but he sure as heck isn't as expensive as Bane, Solomon Grundy, or Giganta, anyone like that. So I would definitely recommend you just try and pick this guy up by himself, because Man-Bat, the Joker, and Beast Boy are kind of yeesh as far as trying to get a hold of those guys carded for the Collect and Connect parts. The other three I don't think are so bad, and neither is that Michael Keaton Batman, but as I said before, he just comes with a figure stand, so you don't really need that figure. But at some point I do plan on picking that up. But, at any rate, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this week's edition of Flashback Fridays. I have plenty more coming your way for this series. We're actually going to be doing a Marvel Legends next week, and if you stay tuned to the next Throwback Thursday, you're probably going to be able to figure out what that is relatively quick. Just something fun I figured I'd do, because, well, let's just say the Todd Father's not going to give us this character anytime soon. Oh, who could it be? If you're familiar with this channel, you probably got a good idea. Come on. Come on, take a guess. You don't win anything, but it's worth trying, right? With that being said, if you are so inclined, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know whenever I upload more reviews like this one. If you haven't already, please hit me up on Instagram at Overlord Productions. But as always, keep the comments civil, because the world sucks enough as it is. And until next time, I'll catch you guys later.